Sarah Huckabee Sanders was on fire during her July 18 White House press briefing when she called out the mainstream media in general for reporting the fake news. Her most quotable moment when was she stated what was totally out of control, and it left reporters probably thinking things like, "Oh no, I'm in trouble now." After her opening to the briefing, she then took questions, and the first batch was targeting Russians and elections. Sanders joked that there wasn't an election today, but she ensured that the White House was taking actions to ensure that Russians can't interfere or meddle with any elections. "We don't really need anyone to stop the Russians if they're actually trying anything, because at the end of the day it's the person who walks into the voting booth and does whatever they want under the privacy they so desire." Sarah Sanders went on a year to go on about steps that America has taken to combat any possible threat of Russian interference. Then someone else asked a question about the same exact thing, and it was like Sarah Sanders was simply repeating her answers and going around in a giant circle. It seemed like the reporters just wanted to hear themselves talk, as it appeared that a few asked very similar questions. Sanders addressed massive media hysteria regarding the White House staffer and the overall negative attention and seeking of bad or fake news. Making up stories out of nowhere is becoming the new norm, and it should stop. White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders called out massive media hysteria to a room full of reporters during the press briefing Wednesday. What about the response to the arrest and indictment of a Russian national who is accused of trying to infiltrate American organizations on the right and try to influence American politics? A reporter asked. "Certainly we're looking at that," Sanders said. "Just to clarify, there was massive media hysteria yesterday over confusion between that individual and the White House staffer, which I think shows frankly the outrageousness and the just desire to find the negative in everything that this president does just because somebody was simply red-headed. They were accused of being some sort of spy for Russia. I think this has gotten totally out of control. You have to step back, slow down, and quit going after the Trump administration on every single thing," she added. When the reporter attempted to follow up, Sanders shot back, "This is a lengthy process. We're going through it. However, I do have a response that simply because somebody had the same hair color, they were accused of being a Russian spy by a lot of people in this room." No matter what Sarah Sanders said or how she said it, repeatedly, she still received silly repetitive answers. At some point it was like a broken record listening to the mask and her answer. It was like hearing the same thing with the words in different order. It gets to the point where Sarah Sanders is simply repeating herself and providing the information that she's permitted to provide. When you're watching the video above and get to the part where they're talking about Russian spies and people with red hair, then you have to stop and think about what these reporters are doing and why some of them even have a job. This isn't reporting or journalism. This is silly searching for stories that do not exist. Is this why Trump calls so many people from mainstream media fake news? Sarah Sanders does her job well, and sometimes the reporters don't like the answers. Some of the other reporters don't seem like they're interested in being there. You can see in the video above that they're sitting there with a rather bored look on their face, like they'd rather be sewing soccer balls in Pakistan for a few cents per week. Where's the enthusiasm in their job? Why don't they ask harder questions that are more interesting instead of slurping on the never-ending taffy of the fake news Russian nonsense? Whatever happened to journalists providing facts instead of trying to sell you snake oil?